from the News Channel 5 network. This is Open Line.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Open Line. I'm Carrie Sharp. Thank you for joining us tonight. Right off the bat here, I want to tell you what our topic is. We are talking affordable housing. We'd love to know your thoughts on where Nashville stands in Davidson County and how it's doing in providing affordable housing and looking towards the future of the needs going forward. The number is on your screen. 615-737-PLUS is the number to call. Two wonderful guests with me tonight who I know you will enjoy hearing from and also learning from. I'm looking forward to it as well. We have Ed Henley, who is joining us, and also Dr. Mick Nelson. Thank you all both for being here. I told you I wanted to start off with you guys introducing yourself to our audience and your day jobs, but also how you tie into the conversation of affordable housing. Ed, I'll let you start.
Absolutely. So I'm the principal of Pillars Development, founded here in Nashville, and been in business for almost 8 years. We operate primarily in the civic space. We work with municipalities to do large capital projects, as well as institutions to do master planning and campus planning. But particularly to your point about affordable housing, I've been the chair, just left, of the board for Rebuilding Together, which is an affordable nonprofit here doing work in Nashville. And then also I'm a developer. Urban infill development is what our firm does, and we're having an affordable housing focus. And we actually have 2 projects underway now that are hopefully models to continue to do more affordable housing.
That's fantastic. And you're the co-chair with, I should say, Dr. Nelson here, Mick, on the Mayor's Affordable Housing Task Force.
Yes.
All right, so Mick, I'm gonna let you pick up there. Tell us how you tie into this whole equation.
Yeah, absolutely. So I have a small firm, Nelson Community Partners. It's been around for about 5 years, and our focus is connecting worthwhile community development, mostly affordable housing projects, with the financing to help make them happen. So sort of to that intersection between making affordable housing happen and exciting things, and bringing the resources together, which is the really big gap that's often needed. So that's sort of what I focus on.
And I'd love to hear from both of you all right from the get-go. Why do you care about affordable housing in Davidson County? Why does it matter to you?
Oh, man. Well, I'll start. I'm a Nashville native, and so just seeing the amount of growth in Nashville, one, is mind-boggling first, but two, something I'm really excited about. I mean, seeing the city grow, I think there's a lot of great opportunities here, and honestly, an immense amount of growth still to come. But I know a big part of that is being able to make sure people that have been here and people that want to move here can afford to be here and have a certain quality of life. And that starts with housing. And I know, as many people do, the demands on our housing market have been insane lately. And if there's not, intentional action done and steps taken to preserve affordable housing, to create more housing, and to make sure people have access to those resources and know how they can navigate just our city, right, as it grows. And so I'm very passionate about that, because these are my family, my neighbors, people I've known forever, as well as the new people that are coming to keep Nashville expanding in the right direction. Absolutely.
What about you, Mick?
So I think it comes most directly. I was had Reverend Bill Barnes was a mentor of mine, and he's the namesake of the Barnes Fund for Affordable Housing. And while I was here in grad school, I worked with him helping to advocate for a housing trust fund that we then, the city ended up creating. And so I think he had a big influence.
We talk about the Barnes Fund a lot, but you've been really integral in it. Can you explain, just on a base level, kind of explanation factor of what is the Barnes Fund? What does it do here?
So the Barnes Fund fills this incredibly important gap. So the city didn't, before the Barnes Fund, didn't have any direct funding for creating affordable housing. We know over the course of the last 20, 30 years, the federal government used to be a big player in creating affordable housing all across the country, and they've kind of stepped back from that role, and it's left a big gap for our city, and housing trust funds like the Barnes Fund step in to help create those affordable housing opportunities that Nashvillians need.
And where does that money come from for the fund?
It comes out of the general fund of the city budget. So it's just part of, there's some targeted funds that come out of, I think, Airbnb or short-term rental funds that are dedicated, but the rest of it all comes from our sort of overall general fund of the city.
And is there any private donation avenue for that?
I believe that yes, there has been some private donations, but I don't want to get the wrong organization. But yes, and I think if anyone else would like to, help
You're
see.
You're not turning anybody away.
Exactly.
Right?
The more as maybe talk about, the more resources, the better, because there's such a big need.
I think also a good explanation that we need to dial back here a little bit is, What is affordable housing? Because I think people think in two different avenues. Some people will immediately think, oh, that's Section 8 housing.
Yep.
And then some people say, no, this is affordable housing that the average person can afford with the average kind of either blue-collar job, that sort of thing. What are we talking about today when we say affordable housing?
Absolutely. Well, I'll start, and of course, Mick, please clean up anything I misstate. But I think starting where you start, I think a lot of folks think about affordable housing, they immediately think Section 8. They think subsidized housing. But affordable housing is much more driven off of the amount of income that a household brings. And there are parameters based on the amount of I would say, revenue that you bring into a household because of working class people. And a lot of times people don't understand that, hey, these are your neighbors now. Imagine if the prices of homes keep increasing and they move out. The neighbor that had the same occupation as them before cannot now move in. And you just kind of think about it in that sense. I think it makes it a lot more easily digestible. But they're broken into different categories primarily, and usually they're based on percentages. 0 to 30% are those that are seen as needing a lot of subsidy, definitely having the most difficult time finding housing, also finding a very difficult time being homeowners.
Right.
And then you continue to grow up in those categories, and 80 to 120 based on our area median income, which is a number that's readily accessible. MDHA and THDA use that as a factor for providing subsidies. And I think, again, those are parameters that people will be surprised when they think about what falls into that category. But on the high end, you're thinking about households that bring in nearly $70,000 annually, still being considered households that need affordable housing. So when you think about that as the high end of the barometer, you start to think, oh wow, those really are the firefighters and the teachers and the nurses, and literally everyone that's in the service industry in the city driven by tourism. And of course, a multitude of occupations that I have not listed, but it makes up the majority of our city.
It really does.
When you really think about our population.
Yeah, can you give me a snapshot, Mick, of how our city is doing right this moment when it comes to providing or having that affordable housing available?
We are doing, I'll frame it this way, it's getting harder and harder to keep where we were at before, which was still a big gap.
Yeah.
We still needed it. We've been needing affordable housing, more attainable housing for a long time. And right now, the mayor has made some recent, and the city as a whole has made some bigger investments in it. So we're doing an okay job, but I think the current number is maybe a shortfall of 15 to 20,000 units that we need today. And that number is likely to grow to about 45,000 units for people earning less than 80% of area median income, which is this $70,000 a year level. We need to create 45,000 new units by the year 2030.
And that's not that far away when you really think about it.
No, it's not.
No.
Wow.
No.
9 years, and we need how many more by then?
We will need a total of 45,000 new units by then.
Wow. Is that possible?
It's going to be a challenge.
Anything is possible. Anything is possible. Yes, absolutely. But again, as Mick was stating, not without obstacles, not without challenges, and not without the collective effort to really make it a priority, and then to take actionable steps to really start today. I mean, there is no time to waste.
Yeah, you said at the very beginning we have to be intentional about this, and that is part of the mayor's reason to create this task force, which you all are co-chairing. So what has happened from January when this thing launched to now almost to August? What have you all been doing? What are you finding?
Well, I would say we were able to assemble 24 very, very qualified practitioners, as well as, I would just say, just activists in the space, and people that are very well versed in a multitude of practices that have been able to develop and preserve affordable housing. And I'm being very intentional now with the preserve and then also create affordable housing, because we started out with that group and we did a little bit of a self-selection on who would be kind of in a committee on affordability being maintained, right? So a preservation model, and then affordability being created. And so the creation model, because you need both. You definitely need both. The most efficient way of creating an affordable housing unit is to preserve one that's already there. But also with the pace of growth, we do need to create. And so we split into two groups, and no adversity or animosity in the split, but we just had a lot to digest and a lot to cover. And so we basically split down the middle. Mick took chairing one committee, I took chairing the other. And we actually met weekly as committees to discuss a lot of the challenges, really to right size our overall mission and goals, is where we started. like many exercises do. And from that, we just started to work to definitely create more bullet point lists about how we were tactical in not only economics or the financial side, but the accessibility and equitability component, and then the ways to tackle those with policy and with planning. And so really just trying to be holistic in our approach. And then we exchanged notes, right? We took the time to, Mick and I particularly, we would alternate, we would go to each other's meetings, we would make sure that we were a conduit between the different committees, and we really just leveraged what was probably collectively over about 300 years of affordable housing experience that we were able to assemble.
That's great.
Which was fantastic. I mean, I've been in the space and doing the work actively for at least 6 years. And I learned so much just from being involved. And I think there's others who have probably tons more experience than I had, and they were still active and learning. And so I think we also catalyzed a really good foundation of a support group for the mayor's administration, and honestly, our city as a whole, to leverage going forward. And ultimately, there's a product, there's a report. But Mick, I know you had your own experience if you want to add to it, but I think we had a really great start, a lot of great work with the mayor's office, supported by planning, and we really just, I mean, we got to it, and it was a weekly, pretty intensive process for a while. Might have been a little bit more than I thought I was signing up for, but definitely excited and wouldn't change a thing. I mean, I really think that this group was focused on getting it right and making sure that this was a resource that would carry far beyond our time spent on the task force.
And as you said, there's been a report created, recommendations made, and I want to go through those throughout the next 50 minutes or so, but what is, I guess, the end game here? Does this continue on? We've given it to the mayor and said, this is what we believe needs to happen. Now what?
So one of the great things is, so I think the report came out maybe June 6th. I was looking at it earlier before this this segment, but and then we know that some of the recommendations are already in the process of being implemented. So there's sort of check boxes. These are things that are happening. The Barnes Fund investment has increased. It's more than doubled this coming budget cycle. Some other things have been announced that are really exciting. So then I think it's up to all of us and everyone out there to help, continue to communicate how important housing affordability is to the city. I think there was a Vanderbilt poll a couple of months ago that said affordable housing is the #1 concern of Nashvillians, higher than education or healthcare or safety. That affordable housing was our collective #1 concern.
And why do you think that is? Maybe for the people who affordable housing is not a concern or live outside Davidson County, why is it important that affordable housing is achievable in Davidson County for the greater mid-state area?
I mean, as much as we try to say it's not a concern, I think it affects everyone, and it really does. Whether or not your individual household, again, it's someone else. And there's so many people that are in the service space, and there's so many people that are in the healthcare space and in the transportation space. All those people that are providing those critical services, they need housing. And the burden for that is becoming felt more and more and more, because now, I mean, it's water cooler talk.
Yeah,
right.
Big time.
People are trying to find a new house or trying to move, or you have people relocating, and it's just shell shock in the terms of prices. And then the same thing, I think it's a basic foundation of building, generational wealth, stability in the household. Financial issues are one of the major causes for stress and really unhealthy relationships being formed. And so when you really cast a wide net of how much is impacted just by your household, the safety and the peace that you feel financially in that space, I think you really understand that it's a core of being able to have a happy and healthy life. And I think Nashvillians are sensing that as we get to continue to invest in ourselves as a city. It's not going to always be parks, even though I love building parks and open space. It's not going to always be shiny new buildings. It's going to be reassuring that our collective community feels safe at home, and they feel a certain reassurance that they can afford to be there in the future.
Yeah, having a home, being a homeowner, really creates, you have a stake in your community.
Absolutely.
You want to see the best for your community that maybe you don't as a renter or someone who has to live outside the city. Yeah, okay, we have to take a quick break. When we come back, I'd love to take some of your calls and questions on this topic, your thoughts as well and experiences. 615-737+. We'll be right back.